Hello, everyone. This is Mike Feldbauer coming to you today from the Flagler Voice podcast studio on our What's Your Hobby podcast. And we'll be right back in just a minute and introduce our guest for today. Well, we're back with you today. Okay, again, Mike Feldbauer from the Flagler Voice podcast studio here in Palm Coast. And today, my guest is Lora Fickett. And she's going to talk about a hobby that maybe you wouldn't even think about at this point, and it is archery. So,
Yes.
Laura, welcome.
Thank you for having me on. I guess archery is kind of a unique hobby. I own Fickett Financial Coaching, so archery is not my full-time job. I am a financial educator and coach. I coach individuals and business owners to make more money, manage it better, and retain it to build their wealth. And I do free consultations for anybody and everybody that just wants to have more money in their life and be wealthy. But I started shooting archery when I was a teenager, and I really enjoyed it. I've never coached anybody in archery that didn't like it. And I started shooting regularly at local tournaments. Then I started shooting semi professionally, and then I shot professionally around the country. And I finally made it to the U.S. archery field team. I made the team and shot the World Games in Hungary in 2010. So it's been a hobby that I have pursued my whole life, basically. I've been shooting for, well, I don't want to tell you how many years because you'll do the math, but decades, let's say. And people always ask me, do you hunt? Yes, I do hunt with a bow and arrow, but that's not where it started. It started at leagues, kind of like bowling leagues. So you might not know this, Mike, but you go every week to shoot a bowling league and you shoot against different teams, and there's archery leagues set up all around the country, usually at rod and gun clubs, indoor, outdoor, and things like that, where people shoot every single week. And you have brackets and scores and teams and all kinds of other stuff, and then at the end you have a banquet, and just kind of like a bowling league. So it's pretty cool.
Did somebody help introduce you into it, or how did you actually pick up the bow the first time and say, and then find out that you really liked it?
That person is insignificant in my life right now. I dated somebody that shot archery, and so I kept the archery, got rid of the person, and and so it wasn't a family thing. A lot of these hobbies come from family, and it wasn't a family thing. A lot of people ask me, "Did your family shoot archery?" No, my father came from Italy. I don't know that he ever owned a bow, and my mother didn't even know how to drive a car or swim, so she definitely was not shooting archery. So I did not pick it up from family. It was just a somebody I was acquainted with and I'm no longer acquainted with. But I, like I said, kept the archery and left the person and never looked back. I actually own six archery bows right now, but at one point I owned 12 before we moved to Florida. So
What do you think it was that intrigued you to not only pick up the bow after you got introduced by this friend and continued at it? What would and another question will be, how would you encourage other people now that are maybe listening and watching this to get involved with something that doesn't seem very, I don't even know what you want to call it, but it's not out there. It's
regular.
not. It's. I don't. I looked at it and I said, when you introduced yourself at another event and said what you have done what you've done with this, I said, wow, that's kind of really different. You don't really think of archery. At least I don't. I'm sorry, as a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Um. So, what do you think?
So here's what's nice about archery is you can go and get a recurve bow, which is just a long kind of stick with a string. Think of like a traditional bow. And a lot of people have said to me, "Oh, I tried archery at camp one time,"
Mm-hmm.
or maybe you have as well. And that's really the bow that they're thinking of. And they have different kinds of arrows. And I think what's nice about it is it's really like a hobby and a sport and fun all together. You can level up and be as good as you want, or just shoot for fun. And I actually started right-handed shooting, so I'm right-handed. I write right-handed and do all kinds of other things right-handed. That's my dominant hand. But actually, my dominant eye, it turns out, is left. So I started shooting and I couldn't get any better I plateaued. I just couldn't win tournaments or anything like that. And somebody said to me, well, is your dominant eye right? Because what happens is when I have to close my left eye to use only my right eye closes a little bit too. So my field of vision actually doesn't work. For those of you that shoot gun, you're familiar with what I'm talking about. So I had to switch and go left-handed, which means I had to drop the pounds that I was pulling back on the bow, and I had to kind of redo a lot of things, and my scores dropped for a good 3 months, but then they excelled. So you have to know what your dominant eye is. That's number one. And then there are places like Bass Pro Shops, Cabela's, sporting goods stores like that, big chain stores. I'm sure you could pick up a bow and arrow on Amazon, where you can start. I shoot a compound bow. There's recurve bows, there's traditional bows, there's all kinds of different ones, and you need a target. And so it's a little expensive, but I guess it's not as expensive as other hobbies like skiing or golfing or things like that. So it's not as cheap as just buying a basketball and go shooting basketball hoops, but it's if people want to get into it, if they meet somebody like myself or they reach out to me, I can get them started for not that much money. And I think it's an empowering hobby because you don't need a group of people to do it with. You can do it by yourself or you can go and shoot with a group of people. So either or. So you have those options. And it challenges you to get better and better. And then there actually is the exercise aspect of it because your muscles, your upper body muscles, get very strong because you are pulling back a certain amount of weight. You get focused, you learn how to focus and quiet your mind and quiet your breathing and things like that. Although my 22-year-old son jokes with me that like now I'm shaped like a traffic cone because I have traps from holding the bow back and shooting. But I think there's a lot of benefits. I've really never met anybody that has even tried archery that didn't like it. I haven't met one single person.
I can go like you said. I think the only time that I spent any time with archery was at summer camp when I was a preteen at that point. And, you know, up until our conversation and getting into this and understanding it's a hobby, the other thing that I always thought about archery when it comes to my mind, I think of Robin Hood. You know, it was a weapon of the day at that point in time. I have had the same issues. You know, I'm left-handed, but I'm right eye dominant. So I've had to deal with some issues in my shooting to get used to that and to overcome it. I didn't have to switch, but being left-handed growing up, there was things that were, for the most public, right-handed.
Easy now, partner. I'm here to help. We'll get through this. Good Guys Firearm Accessories, your go-to source for real protection without lethal force. Byrna launchers are game changers. CO2 powered, firing 68 caliber projectiles, launching up to 60 feet with non-lethal impact or chemical irritants to stop threats safely and instantly. Compacts like the CL for everyday carry, plus holsters, extra CO2 mags, all legal nationwide. Shop the best selection with expert advice from Mike at Good Guys Firearm Accessories. You looking at me, kid?
So when you said that now, I said immediately I went this way. So I must have only played with the bow
Right-handed.
pulling right-handed, pulling back.
Which was perfect for you because you're right eye dominant.
Yeah, but not knowing that and being left-handed. But I had the same issue even with rifles. I was on a rifle team in our high school, and back there, the rifles you cock like this, up, back, down, back,
Right.
and there was no left-handed ones available, or they were too expensive. So when I shoot with my left pistol with my left hand, but rifles always pick up it's right-handed. And I did the same thing with a golf club. Golf clubs for left-handed were so expensive. And when a gentleman was trying to help several of us guys learn how to do it, I went out and bought a right-handed 7-iron. But I bat left-handed. I'll golf, though I really don't golf, right-handed, and I can't switch the two. So
But the
That
right-handed,
muscle memory has to really be worked on.
yeah, the right-handed for you is actually the right way to do it, because then you can shoot your bow and arrow, you can shoot your gun, you have better hand-eye coordination if you're using your dominant eye. So even though you stumbled upon it, thinking you should just use your left, you were actually better off using your right the whole entire time. You probably should bat right-handed too. I have right-handed golf clubs, but I know that I should have left-handed ones. But like you said, they're expensive, and I don't golf enough for it to make a difference. So when I miniature golf, I'm ambidextrous.
Well, today when I hear about golf tournaments, and I'm involved with the Flagler County Drug Court Foundation, and we have a golf tournament coming up, and I don't really play golf anymore. But when I was working for another company, and they thought golf would be good team things, and I went and I said, okay, I went. So I had to get the right-handed clubs to do that, because I couldn't switch. And I didn't understand about left and right eye dominant until I started shooting with a pistol.
Right.
And then I was learning from other people, because all the rest of it was self-learned, and I really didn't know at that time. But yeah, it maybe, I don't know if I'll try switching, but I don't know if I can, if my muscle memory will allow me to do that part.
Well, the other part about archery is you have the bow that you use, but you also have the arrows, and you have either fingers or a release. So there are components to archery that you need to think about. So a lot of people buy a target and they don't know what kind of target to buy, or it depends on the arrow. It depends on what's at the end of the arrow. If you're using a broadhead at the end of the arrow because you plan on hunting, then you need a different target than if you're using a field point. And so there is some archery jargon that you have to think about. If you have a pro shop near you, like when I lived up in Massachusetts, there's a great Reedy's Archery pro shop. I haven't been up there in 6 years, but I hope Chris Reedy is still going strong. If you have a pro shop near you that has archery equipment, that's the best place to start, because they can help you with what the right tools are to get started. But like I said, I had a rod and gun club up north that had an indoor archery range. There's one here in Flagler County that has an outdoor archery range. So there are a lot of places that you can go and shoot. If you have enough land, like I do, you can shoot in your backyard. But then for releases, they can use fingers. They can use something that straps on their wrist and connects to the string, or they can use what's called a back tension release, which is more advanced for this conversation. But those of you that shoot professionally, you know what I'm
Do you
talking
consider, I know there's things called crossbows, and they're a little bit different. You consider that part of the hobby part or something else?
I've never considered crossbows as archery, because you're not actually, it's more, I feel like it's more in the gun scenario, and the bullet is an arrow versus a bullet, because you're not actually drawing back a bow with a string. So for me, it does go in the middle there, but you're pulling a trigger. So I feel like that's more of that's a totally different sport, and I think it's more along the gun sport than it is. And I'm sure there's people that are watching that are like, "Oh no, it's archery," and I'm like, oh, "Okay, it's kind of like." I go bowling, and I didn't realize that people bring two balls because one's like a curve ball and one's a straight ball. Like, I didn't know that. I'm just trying to throw the ball down there and hit pins. So, so I think it's a different.
I'm with you on that stuff.
species.
It's just, it can get crazy.
Yes.
And a lot of that's, quite frankly, a lot of it's marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll move you from A to B, and we get more sales out of it, when A was really what you wanted, and that's what you're doing. So,
Now,
but
there are some. One thing is, archery can be a family sport. All of my children know how to shoot archery, of course. But there are bows that can grow with you, which most people don't realize. There was one called a Matthews Menace. Matthews is the company that makes the bow, and Menace, and there are other ones where you can adjust the draw length, which means kind of like your wingspan. So I might have a shorter draw length than someone that's 6'2". My arms are shorter. And you can adjust the weight. So you can have one bow that you could buy for a child, and maybe they can only pull back 20 pounds in the beginning, and they have a short draw. And then as they grow, you can increase the draw and increase the weight, and it will grow with them. Or if somebody that's inexperienced and they're learning, I have one of those bows right-handed that I teach people on, because if I'm teaching a male versus a woman, tall versus short, kid versus adult, I need to be able to adjust it accordingly. And so they have bows like that I think are very good investments if you kind of want to dabble in the sport but not go semi-professional or professional. And it's something, like I said, you can do with the whole family.
So, are you doing much teaching here in Flagler County, or you would you want to start an archery club?
By appointment only.
What's going on?
I don't. I actually I don't teach much archery unless people ask me. So a friend of mine asked me to teach his whole family, and I did. Someone else asked me that I network with if I could teach them archery, and I will, and I'm more than willing to help. But I don't have any kind of. I am a financial educator and coach first and foremost, and that's where my focus is. That's where my love is, to help people become wealthy at whatever stage of life that they're in. But if somebody asks me to teach them archery, then I'm more than willing to give them a lesson. And with that family I was just telling you about, within an hour, everybody was hitting the target. So when you don't know anything about archery and I teach you exactly how to stand, exactly how to pull back the bow, exactly how to, position yourself and how to aim and everything like that, you can hit the target really quickly because you're learning all of the best things at first.
Well, that's really cool. When I heard Lora speak of this topic at another event, I said, wow, I think this would be, having her on here for the hobby show, What's Your Hobby, would be a great time to talk to her. And she said, yes, she'd be happy to do that. So we're about ready to wrap up here. I want to thank you, Lora, for being with us today, expressing the interest that you've got. And if you want, you can let people know how to reach you. If you don't, it's okay.
No, absolutely. If you want to reach me, my website, you can reach out to, it's www.Lora Fickett, Lora. The last name is F as in Frank, Ickett as in tango.com. So LoraFickett.com or FickettFinancialCoaching.com. It takes you to the same place. And you can contact me through my website, even if it's not about finances. If it's about archery, I am more than happy to help you on whichever journey you have.
Well, again, I thank you. Everybody, enjoy it. If you've got questions, feel free to get a hold of Lora. She's told you how to do it. If you have a hobby out there that you'd like to speak about, we'd love to have you come on.